rid of that screen there. Okay, hopefully everything is working okay. Sorry if you heard. That was like an ad running on my phone as I was trying to turn on my own live stream and do a sound check. Everything looks like it is working well, so thank you very much to everybody who is joining me right here at One Nation Weather. We're going to go ahead and flip on over to this screen here. Ignore the thing that says future radar up there at the top. This is our current radar as of when I'm doing this live stream on our Saturday morning. And where is that text? Let's go ahead and get rid of that. There we go for now. As we are looking at plenty of severe thunderstorm warnings already this morning ongoing over parts of northern Louisiana into southeast Arkansas, stretching on up into northern Mississippi, as well as southwestern parts of Tennessee. We also do have a couple of tornado warnings. The main reason I do this stream is not to cover these storms necessarily, but if you do live in any of these areas with the orange or red boxes, I'm starting this stream. Make sure that you are being prepared, again, as of, 9:15 Eastern Time, 8:15 Central Time when all of this is going on. If you're watching this after or joining me a little bit later on, of course, this will probably not be going on in these exact areas by the time you're watching. The main reason we're doing this live stream is to talk about what's going to be going on as we go through the rest of our Saturday, and I want to continue doing more live stream updates like this for storm systems in the future. So if you enjoy when I do live updates and I'm able to answer your questions more directly, make sure you're putting that down in the comments section. Also, if you're sharing this out with friends and family, that will really help support this stream and get the information out to more people as we're going to jump right into the severe weather forecast for the rest of today. So with that being said, I want to go ahead and jump over to my latest ONW severe scale graphic, which is my custom 0 to 7 forecast scale for severe weather. It's kind of like the Storm Prediction Center. They have their 0 to level 5 scale. I have a 0 to level 7 scale, and I usually base the general color scheme off of what the Storm Prediction Center is doing and where they have their risk zones. I'm proud to have called the area that was going to end up getting the Storm Prediction Center's high risk into central parts of Mississippi into Arkansas a couple days ago. Unfortunately, I'm not very happy to see that has been what's ended up occurring, because now we have as high as a level 6 of 7 on my scale, up to a level 5 of 5 on the Storm Prediction Center's severe weather scale for intense severe weather that could include strong and long track tornadoes as we go through the day today over parts of the Mid-South. I've been stressing this in previous updates. We're pretty much out of time, except for those very last-minute preparations like cleaning out a safe room in the lowest, most interior room of your home or building. We're really running out of time in places like especially Mississippi, Alabama, as within the next few hours this tornado event is already expected to begin with supercells moving across the region. So make sure you're hitting that like button to support this stream and share it out to get this information out to more people. But the summary is that a life-threatening tornado outbreak continues to be probable. That has not changed for today and tonight, while confidence is lower towards the Ohio Valley region with a level 2 to level 3 on the scale there. Areas from Kentucky and Tennessee back down to Arkansas, Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, Florida, and Georgia will have the potential for a destructive series of supercell thunderstorms with major tornadoes, some of which the Storm Prediction Center has been saying in some of their forecast discussions could be EF3 or greater. That's a very intense tornado, and it would pretty much destroy even well-built structures. So that is a very concerning sign to be hearing about that. There's going to be the potential for, of course, damaging winds and hail as well, as this could turn eventually into a nocturnal event into the night tonight. This graphic on screen, it says March 15th, but it does include the pre-dawn hours of Sunday, March 16th. As violent tornadoes will be a possibility during that time frame. So again, I can't stress this enough. Everybody really needs to be getting prepared for this, making those very last-minute preparations if they have not already. I assume many people are aware of this threat being on the way, though there's been a lot of coverage on my channel and others about what is on the way. I do want to briefly point out, by the way, we'll talk about this a little bit in this stream as well, as we go into tomorrow, which is our Sunday, and into the very early part of our Sunday night, we could continue to watch some severe weather getting closer to the east coast of the United States with additional storms, some left over from the night before, some with new lines forming up as the day goes on. From the panhandle of Florida all the way on up to the mid-Atlantic, at least some isolated to even scattered damaging winds, hail, and a couple instances of tornadoes could be possible. Does it look like a massive severe weather outbreak? No, but it still looks like a severe weather event continuing with leftover activity like we tend to see moving closer to the East Coast after a bigger outbreak out west. So that's going to be something we're watching. But before I get into answering specific questions of those of you who are on here live, of course, I do want to let you know that even if you are watching this after the stream, you can also drop your questions and concerns down in just the regular comments section. Before we get into any of those comments, questions, and concerns, so let's go ahead and jump on over here and give you a look at some of the latest future radar guidance that has been coming in as I'm working on setting up this stream. This is your HRRR model. This is the full run that is working on processing right now of this model for our Saturday morning here, the Saturday morning run. Let's go ahead and pivot on over to the timing screen. Now we can make that text pop back up because this is a future radar timeline for, there we go, future radar HRRR model. Here we go. Let's go ahead and play things out. I think it's doing a great job already of initializing what's going on here with that band of storms already producing some severe weather. And, of course, flood threats will go up out of these storms that train over the same areas from northern parts of Louisiana all the way on up to southwest Mississippi and points in between as we go through the rest of this morning. By the time we get later into the morning, it looks like we'll continue to be watching those storms blossoming on up from places like Jackson, Tennessee, all the way back down through Memphis. We've got Clarksdale, Mississippi, back on over into Pine Bluff, Arkansas, Greenville, Mississippi, El Dorado, Arkansas, Monroe, Louisiana, down to Alexandria. We're going to continue to watch this training line of storms. I certainly think flood threats could go up as a result of a lot of these cells tracking over the same areas as we go through our Saturday morning time frame. As we go deeper into the morning and closer to the afternoon is when I think our tornado threats are going to ramp up, exiting western and pushing into parts of central Mississippi, getting into parts of west central and northwestern parts of Mississippi, getting out of western and into central Louisiana, getting out of western and into central parts of Mississippi, getting into western parts of even Tennessee and Kentucky. We'll have to at least be watching isolated severe weather. And I think one of the main concerns we're going to be watching further north along this general activity as you get on up towards Kentucky and Tennessee is actually going to be the possible damaging wind as well as just general flood threat we're going to have to watch as a lot of these storms move on through. Sure, we could see some tornadoes even on up here, but the biggest environment for tornadoes, of course, is going to be south of these zones as the warm front lifting all the moisture into place is what's going to really be bringing all the rainfall to these areas further north. And when you have rainfall training over the exact same zones for a consistent period of time, that does eventually help in kind of helping to degrade the instability in the atmosphere and make it a little bit lower of a chance for tornadoes. I'm not saying you're in the clear in Nashville or Bowling Green or Louisville. I'm just thinking flooding is going to be a bigger concern in some of those zones as we go through the day as opposed to widespread tornadoes. Back down further to the south, though, possibly already beginning to see our tornado outbreak with some embedded supercells along what has continued to look a little bit more linear of a line of storms here for the day. This linear look, I will say, is something that this HRRR model hasn't been picking up on as much in the last couple of days of updates, so it's better to see a linear line of storms with possible embedded tornadoes than just full-out supercells all over the place. But that's assuming this is exactly how this is going to look, and I'm not saying that this future radar timeline is exactly how these storms are going to look by the time we get towards this time frame, 2, 3 o'clock into the afternoon. This just gives you a general idea of timing where linear structures and some of these supercells running around and ahead of the line could be going on all the way through parts of Mississippi, really from the northern part of the state all the way back down to the southwestern corner. Jackson could still be going strong with severe storms and possible tornadoes through the middle of the afternoon today, back down to Baton Rouge, Louisiana, probably watching some feisty activity as well as we push into the early afternoon, and again continuing to watch at least some isolated severe weather hazards as well as flooding hazards closer on up towards Kentucky and Tennessee. By 3, 4, 5 o'clock into the evening, you can see we're going to continue to be watching more of the rain and storms and wind and hail and isolated tornadoes pushing through some parts of Tennessee. And then also back down here towards the south, I think as we get towards 3, 4, 5 o'clock, that could be when we see some of our tornado threats peaking right around and ahead of this line of storms right here into parts of eastern Mississippi. It's going to seem like it's going to be taking forever to make its way through the state of Mississippi, kind of due to the fact that the storms along the line are actually going to be moving from southwest to northeast, and the general west to east push of it is actually going to be much slower because, again, you can kind of notice the storms are kind of training. You can see them, they're training southwest to northeast, and that makes the line seem like it's taking longer to exit the state. Nonetheless, I think as we go through the middle to the back half of the afternoon, not to say there couldn't be threats before then, but I think that's when things are really going to begin ramping up to their peak in some parts of Alabama, heading out of eastern Mississippi into those zones as well. Really looking like a feisty time, 5, 6, 7 o'clock into this evening. We'll have to continue to watch the storms as they go nocturnal as well. You can see some of these storms look feisty, still possibly closer to coastal Mississippi, exiting out of those zones into Alabama as the sun goes down, and thereafter tonight watching some dangerous storms. But you could have supercell storms in your Tuscaloosa and Jasper in Alabama as we go through the late afternoon into the evening. Same goes all the way on up to Huntsville, and with some of these storms riding around some of that massive rain even in places like Nashville, Tennessee, not only will the flood threat be there, we'll at least have to watch the threat for isolated severe weather and isolated tornadoes. Up into the Ohio Valley today, I think the severe weather threat has really generally fallen off for this activity later in the day. This looks like straight up rain that's going to move through a lot of these zones in places like Indianapolis over to Columbus, Ohio, points in between, and then eventually eastbound through the night. I don't think that severe weather threat's going to be too elevated up here, but at least damaging winds and isolated tornadoes could try to move up anywhere out of Kentucky and Indiana, and especially on over into a place like Ohio or the Central Appalachians as we go later into the night tonight. So that's something we'll be watching. Back down here further to the south, the main line we're going to be watching is probably going to be extending out of Tennessee with especially damaging wind and isolated tornado threat there, and then with the continued higher end threat for what could be violent tornadoes continuing. After the afternoon rounds of possible violent tornadoes and embedded supercells as well as linear structures back into places like Mississippi, I think Alabama pushing into Georgia, it's going to be going strong as we get towards the middle of the night tonight. The eastern half of Alabama, the western half of Georgia, sometime around midnight is when things are likely going to be picking up through those zones. And again, these little cells running out ahead of the line don't look like much, but these little structures that get out ahead of the main line itself and are able to tap into all of the storm energy that is going up into the line before the line even arrives, those are going to be some of the ones that have some of the biggest potential. But still, the main line itself as well could have damaging winds, embedded tornadoes, and some hail. Again, exiting parts of Alabama into Georgia. Generally, the time frame continuing to be locked on around the middle of the night into the very early hours of Sunday for those zones being impacted. Further into the overnight hours, more storms. You could see here exiting parts of Crestview there in Florida in the western panhandle probably sometime around the middle of the night, and then heading closer to Tallahassee by 2, 3, 4 a.m. Supercells on the southern end of our line very much could be producing tornadoes there. Supercells all through central Georgia being possible, as well as some linear structures. Again, kind of the mix of linear structures and supercells looks to be the biggest trend that we've seen here on this HRRR model for a lot of the duration of this event. We're going to have probably some storms running out ahead of the line, and then some embedded supercells as well as just linear structures in the main line, with damaging winds being the main threat for pretty much everybody to see in at least scattered fashion to widespread fashion. And then, of course, there will be those tornadoes, and where they do happen, especially back to the west of where I'm showing on screen right now, that could be where we see some of those more violent and long track style of tornadoes. As we get into the overnight hours of tonight and deeper into Sunday morning, we'll be watching some of these storms pushing out of Georgia into South Carolina, where places like Lawrence, Greenwood, some of these surrounding areas into the west central parts of the state, as well as eventually the central parts of the state. We'll be watching that gnarly line moving in some of these stronger storms right around or before sunrise. And then from there, that's where our model kind of runs out for now. But I'm going to go ahead and pivot on over briefly to an earlier run of the model just to kind of carry us through the afternoon of our Sunday so that we can talk a little bit about the timing as things get closer to the East Coast. Here we go, pushing things past the morning. You can see this earlier run of the model pretty much had similar timing on those storms for the Carolinas and Georgia anyway. By the time we get through the mid-morning hours of tomorrow, from the northern Florida Panhandle through eastern Georgia, central Carolinas, and then on up into the mid-Atlantic, we'll probably be watching this entire line of storms and just general activity left over from the night before, continuing to progress east with damaging winds and some hail and possibly some tornadoes getting embedded. I think we'll be seeing less supercell-type structures running out ahead of the main line. A lot of what we have will be probably embedded in the main line in terms of tornado potential as all of this gets closer to the Georgia coast and Jacksonville, Florida towards midday. We'll be watching storms probably through the eastern Carolinas as the day goes on, as well as on up into the mid-Atlantic. We could see some additional storms fire on off behind the main line into the east coast as we get into our Sunday afternoon. You can see here through parts of North Carolina, Virginia, on up into Pennsylvania is where this model is currently indicating that could occur. That secondary line could have another renewed threat for damaging winds and isolated tornadoes over some of the same zones. And it looks like that could continue pushing east closer to the coast with gusty winds and heavy rain towards Philly, New York City, surrounding zones as we get into the middle of the evening on our Sunday. So that pretty much sums up a lot of the timing here that I have for the severe weather event. Why this event is going to be so strong, I can show that to you right here with the severe weather ingredients being compiled together here. This is going to be your HRRR model, and it is showing you the significant tornado parameter ingredients. And a lot of these are going to be very near off the charts as I pull up this graphic right here. Let's go ahead and put the correct key on the screen. Let's go and go ahead and move this forward. Look at all the energy we're going to have into the deep south today. Those reds and pinks moving through Mississippi, especially the southern parts of the state, and then well on up into Alabama and the northern parts of Mississippi as well, indicating where that prime tornado environment will have wherever we get the supercells as well as the linear structures to move into the very highly wind sheared and just generally strong environment with volatile winds in the atmosphere that could get carried down towards the surface. If we zoom this out and look at the general southeast U.S., even overnight tonight, we'll have at least that existing tornado threat, although it will be lower as it gets further through Georgia into the Carolinas. Then we could see a little bit of that ramping up behind that first line tomorrow afternoon, and whatever especially happens with that second line, maybe we could get a renewed tornado threat into some parts of the mid-Atlantic. This definitely looks like a very strong event, though, and it's nothing that you want to take lightly here, anywhere from the mid-south, even all the way over to the east coast, as these storms could be on that very strong side. Again, violent tornadoes being possible today, and at least some tornadoes still possible getting closer to the east coast tomorrow, one or two of which could even still be on that strong side. For those of you who are just joining this live stream while I'm doing it here, I want to go ahead and pivot back on over to my ONW severe scale so that you can see the severe weather risks for the next couple of days. Here's my level 0 to level 7 scale for today, our March 15th, our Saturday, and this does include the pre-dawn hours into our Sunday morning, so we're going to go state by state with some of the areas that could be impacted. We've got Indiana and southern Ohio and surrounding zones in a level 2 to level 3 of 7, meaning that as we get some storms throughout the day today, especially with the round that gets renewed later into the day, into the evening, and even into the overnight, some of the storms there and into the central Appalachian regions that are shaded in dark green and yellow will have the potential to get at least some isolated severe weather with damaging winds, hail, and tornadoes all being possible factors. Obviously, the biggest risk, though, is going to be where I'm circling right down here as you come down, especially around and east of the lower Mississippi River Valley, exiting far southeast Alabama as we go out of the morning and into the afternoon, exiting Louisiana deeper through the day today, and then for several hours in Mississippi, for several hours in parts of Tennessee, several hours in parts of especially Alabama into western Georgia and the western Florida Panhandle. That's where we've got a widespread level 4, 5 to 6 on my ONW severe scale, and just for context as to what that level is going to mean for you here, let's see if I can find that. There it is right here, your severe weather risk scale breakdown. Again, up to a level 6 means that a severe storm outbreak is very likely with many concerning hazards. In this case, it's going to be widespread, possibly long track tornadoes, or at least tornadoes that will be widespread, and a few of them being long tracked, I should say it like that. I don't think we're going to have an atrocious amount of tornadoes that are on the ground for hours, but there's that potential today in the volatile environment we're going to have for at least a few to do just that, maybe even more. So you need to be prepared down here, especially over the mid-south for today, and then overnight tonight, of course, over here into the southern Appalachians, parts of the Florida Panhandle, Georgia, the Carolinas. We'll be continuing to watch a lot of these threats push east. For now, into the day on our March 16th, I have a level 3 of 7 on my scale as you get much closer to the east coast. But I think even a little bit further inland in the mid-Atlantic, we could get some stronger storms that warrant 3 of 7. So I might have to adjust this and include a few more areas in the highest risk for Sunday and Sunday night as well. I can tell you, though, this machine learning guidance has been calling it pretty well. This is a graphic I showed in a live stream, I believe, 2 or 3 days ago. The Colorado State machine learning probabilities graphic here that you can find right on the web, and it did such a great job. This was 4 days out, showing the severe weather probability for the Mid-South for our Saturday and Saturday night. Look at that area it had highlighted. Sure, not necessarily as much as expected to extend all the way on up into Kentucky and Tennessee as this may have been indicating for significant severe weather, but definitely parts of Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia getting in on very feisty stuff, and it has had those zones highlighted, and it has been watching it like a hawk. Not necessarily Louisiana as much, though that's been a little bit of its downfall with this graphic. It kind of underdid what we could be seeing into today in parts of Arkansas and Louisiana, but overall a pretty good graphic, and I'll be continuing to use these in the future. Let's see what questions that we have here going on in the live chat with me. First of all, I have 55 people on here with me live as of when I'm doing the stream right now, and I've got 20 likes on the stream. I'd love if I could get that like number up so that we could get this stream supported better in the algorithm. But additionally, if you enjoy these kinds of live updates, let me know down in the live chat along with your comments and questions, because I do want to do more of these in the future as opposed to videos if you feel that these help answer everybody's questions a little bit more effectively for various types of weather events. So just let me know about that down in the comments and questions, or with your comments and questions as well down below. I'm going to start with some of the questions that we have here. We're going to start with Bob the Skeleton at 1234. He says, what about second risk over? What about that second risk over and Michigan? Let's just look at Michigan for today. I'm not fully sure exactly what you're saying, but first of all, let's start here with this for today. This is your severe weather risk. That's going to include Michigan. You got a level 2 of 7 in the southeastern part of the state, meaning that we could at least see some isolated severe weather, although the tornado threat should be on the relatively low side. Let's go ahead and pivot on over here briefly to the radar omega timing so that I can hit you there in Michigan, and then we'll move on to the next questions. Let's go ahead and jump back over to the latest timing now that we don't want to see the furthest extent of this. Come on. Let's load it up. Apologize. I'm trying to load up this timing here. There we go. Through the day today, later into the day, we could certainly see some of these storms in southern Michigan. We'll have to watch for gusty winds, maybe an isolated tornado or hail threat. You could see them. They'll be moving south to north along that secondary warm front. I don't really see anything too significant beyond that point in time, just some heavy rain as we go through the rest of the night and into early tomorrow morning with more heavy rain through some parts of the day. By the way, that little band right there that comes on up on the back end of the storm, some of that could produce some brief snowfall back on over there. This is a little bit of a surprise, but places like Chicago, you could get a brief burst of snow as this tries to move on up into Lake Michigan, the cold side of the second low that'll be moving up into tomorrow. All right, I digress from that. Let's go ahead and see what other severe weather-related questions we have on here live. Again, if you're watching this after, you can also ask your questions just down in the regular comments section when that pops up. Let's see. Which one did I miss? Thank you from Southeast Texas. You're very welcome there. Texas Morning Glory. Lee says if... Let's see what's going on here. We've got some other discussions that have been going on that are just distracting me from the questions. Dr. Tony says, how do you think Savannah, Tennessee will be? Currently, McNairy County has a warning. Let's see what's going on there in that part of Tennessee. Savannah County, Tennessee. Let's go ahead and type that right on into this search bar on up here. I don't know if it's going to let me do a county. Savannah, Tennessee. Hopefully this covers you. Let's see where that is. Yeah, the southwest part of Tennessee. So yeah, there's already some warnings kind of near your vicinity as of when the stream is going on our Saturday morning. Through the day, I think you're going to have to watch these storms that continue training up through some of these zones. And I think it's going to be into there, especially the midday time frame and through at least the middle of the afternoon where we have the heaviest rain and storms. You could definitely see damaging winds and an isolated tornado threat as these move through. Although I do think by the time, if this guidance holds, by the time we get towards around 3, 4, 5 o'clock, a lot of the worst activity should begin to shade to your east, although I wouldn't rule out isolated severe weather hazards all the way through at least sundown tonight before things really do look like they will generally calm down, other than some isolated stronger storms with maybe gusty winds being a main threat into the middle of the night tonight. Can I see the risk of Columbus, Georgia? Yeah, I could certainly cover you there in Columbus, Georgia. I feel like I should know where that is, but I'm going to type this into the search just to be sure. Okay, they're right on the southwest corner there of Georgia. First of all, we're already on timing, so let's give you a general look at that. Here we go. You can see as we exit Alabama and push onto that Alabama-Georgia border, it looks like right as we go into the middle of the nighttime hours of tonight, that's when you need to be ready for severe storms. That could include at least scattered tornadoes, a couple of which could still have that potential to be long track of violent ones overnight. Again, it looks like the threat will begin as early as around midnight there. Well, this is midnight Eastern, so let's say 11 p.m. Central Time tonight, and then through around 3, 4 a.m. Whenever you hear that heaviest line get through you there in Columbus, probably by about 3, 4 in the morning Central Time, we'll begin to start clearing out, and then we should be good for the rest of the day in a place like Columbus, Georgia, from severe weather. Let's see, Grimgrave says, what do I think the severe weather will look like for parts of southeastern Kentucky and the Williamsburg region? Yeah, let's just cover southeastern Kentucky in general. First of all, let's go back on over to the severe weather scale graphic just really quickly, just to show you that we do have, even on up into Kentucky, a level 3 of 7 for severe weather up there into the southeastern part of the state. it's certainly going to be a stronger setup even up there for at least some isolated to scattered in damaging winds and possible hail and a couple of tornadoes that could be in the mix. Although, again, that highest tornado threat is going to be much further back down to your south and west. Let's jump right on over here into the timing for the Kentucky region, then we'll move on to the next question. You can see here, southeast Kentucky, we're going to get in on some rain and storm action possibly at various times through the day today, but that heaviest line, you can obviously see that trying to get closer to you into the night tonight. It really looks like a general just massive rain and possibly strong gusty winds that will move through by the time we get later into this afternoon, probably deeper into the evening when a lot of this will move overhead in a place like Williamsburg or just southeast Kentucky in general. We could see some stronger damaging winds or an isolated tornado in any of this action all the way through the middle of the overnight hours, but I think things will calm down by the time the sun is coming up into our Sunday morning before we could get renewed storms. Some of these brief little cells that come around on that kind of tailing front here as the system kind of moves around, you can see that spin and how it fires up some storms into the afternoon. We'll have to watch these. These could be feisty little supercells, a couple of them that move through some parts of the Ohio Valley and Tennessee Valley as we get into our even Sunday afternoon, although the main severe weather threat by then will be over into the mid-Atlantic. Let's see what we've got here. Northeast Kentucky. Well, we just kind of covered Kentucky, the southeastern part of the state. Northeast Kentucky looks pretty similar. We'll be watching a lot of rain and storms moving through at various times through the day today. While I couldn't rule out severe weather then, the best chance for severe storms with damaging winds, hail, and isolated tornadoes would be in at least isolated to scattered fashion into the nighttime hours of tonight. Maybe a renewed threat with a couple of cells tomorrow afternoon. The main threat that has the highest confidence is tonight, though, with a level 3 of 7 in Kentucky on my ONW severe scale. Lee says, I've been trying to figure out what to do if a tornado hits because my girlfriend doesn't want to leave ahead of time. I decided to drive up the street. I don't think that would be a very good idea. I think we've got some maybe sarcasm going on in the comments here. If that isn't, I certainly don't recommend what you're saying you do in the case of a tornado here in the chat. But I don't know how sturdy your structure is. Obviously, I'm not going to ask you to send me a picture of what it looks like or something like that. But let's just say if you don't feel safe in your current home or building, I don't know if there's any storm shelters available near you that may be opened up because of the severe weather event. You'd have to do the research on that for your specific area depending on where you are. Evidently, based on what you're saying, your home's in the woods, which obviously isn't the most ideal place to be during a tornado or a severe weather event. So in that case, either lowest, most interior room of your home or building if you're not leaving. I don't necessarily think leaving is going to save you from a tornado that could hit. It could really hit anywhere. Kind of a weird discussion here, honestly, as I'm just trying to figure out what to say about that. But whatever you can do that makes you feel the safest, just make sure if you're unable to get out of your current situation, let's just say, that you know where the lowest, most interior room of your current home or building, your structure, is going to be. What's going up for Memphis? Ruby Northen says, let's go ahead and take a look at Memphis. We've had some severe weather that's been ongoing. I talked about it at the beginning of this stream. We've had action going on through Memphis this morning. Some of that could produce an isolated damaging wind and tornado threat, but I think the heaviest of this activity will already be shading east of Memphis by around the middle of the afternoon today. From there, more storms possible in isolated fashion through the evening. We could even see a final round around midnight tonight. But all of this looks more isolated in terms of severe weather activity with each of these rounds for a place like Memphis, as the heaviest threats should be just off to your south and east. You can see those storms really looking pink just off to your south and east later into the morning today and then through the afternoon. Weatherman of the North was also doing a great job answering Lee's questions there in the comments. Thank you very much for that. Jane, is it the same for Northeast Kentucky, the Ashland area? Yeah, all that stuff I was just talking about for Kentucky looks about the same, the eastern part of the state, with that especially heaviest round tonight. Let's see, Care Bear says, what about central and southern Virginia, the South Hill area? Yeah, we can go ahead and type that in and see what's going to happen into those zones, or what's generally projected. South Hill, Virginia, right down there in the south central part of the state. Yeah, so you'll have that potential for some storms later tonight, but better chance is going to be as we go through the morning hours, probably during daylight hours. That's the good news here. You should be able to kind of see what's on the way from the sky, but of course don't go outside during these storms as we get some point later into the morning or the early afternoon of our Sunday. Damaging winds and isolated tornadoes could be possible along this line there into Virginia, and we could also see those threats get renewed all the way with some of this action that could be refiring back up through some of these areas with daytime heating through the afternoon. So be prepared all through the day. Know the lowest, most interior room of your home or structure there in Virginia, just in case some of these storms produce a tornado. Best threat will be for some scattered damaging winds of 50 to 60 miles per hour out of any storms we see through our Sunday, though. You're very welcome, Jane. Let's see what else we've got. Okay, that's all the current comments and questions we have in the chat, but there are 61 of you here on the stream. I'd love to get the like button number up just so that we can have the stream go out to more people. I did the forecasting part of the stream at the beginning on purpose because I want people who are watching this back later in the day to see that information I provided in the latest timelines first. But again, now that we're on to the Q&A part of this, whether you're watching this with me live or after, you can drop your comments and questions down below. So let me know if you have any here, as there are 61 people currently on this live stream as of when I'm saying this. While I wait on that, again, I'll go ahead and pivot back on over here to the severe weather scale graphic. Level 6 of 7 at the highest there into some parts of Mississippi and Alabama for the day today. Again, a very concerning situation for possible EF3 plus tornadoes that could occur in at least isolated, scattered fashion later today. Again, I don't necessarily do like live severe weather coverage during the event right here on this channel, but I'm all about doing the live updates. I've done so many videos and live updates over the last several days to cover all of this that I hope everybody's well prepared ahead of the storm. That's what this is all about. Make sure you have a way to receive alerts. There's a pretty simple thing you can do. I'm sure you can look it up on YouTube if you don't know how to do it, but you can go into the settings on your phone, whether it's an iPhone or an Android, and you can have emergency alert settings. If for some reason they're not already on, you can check and make sure those are on so that your phone will scream at you in the middle of the night if there's a tornado warning or even like a significant severe thunderstorm warning overhead. You need to be treating severe thunderstorm warnings that pop up through the day today, especially if they're related to supercell thunderstorms down into the deep south, very seriously, because a strong thunderstorm with damaging winds in this kind of volatile environment can quickly start producing tornadoes. And heck, the damaging winds themselves can, cause significant damage to your house and your property. So you want to just be staying away from windows, especially even if there's not a tornado when trees could be coming down, those kinds of impacts. Let's see what we've got here. What about Florence? I don't know what Florence you're talking about there, GeoEdits, so if you will, let me know. I think it's Florence, Alabama. I feel like we talked about this yesterday. One last thing while it's on my mind and while you confirm, let me go and jump on over here now to this just to show you the forecasted rainfall. I've done so many live updates over the last several days without talking as much about some of this rainfall we could get here into places like Tennessee. Look at this rain into this particular zone right here. Again, especially centered on northern Mississippi, Alabama, and then on up into parts of Tennessee and Kentucky. Widespread 2 to 5 inches of rain with possibly locally higher amounts as all this rain moves through the day. So in any of these zones where we see this possible isolated to even scattered, maybe briefly numerous flooding in a few zones there through Tennessee, Kentucky, and points southbound, we'll have to watch that potential for flooding and tornado warnings to be going on at the same time, and that could create some dangers, especially the further south you go through this area expecting the flooding. Let's see, Florence, South Carolina. GeoEdit says, my bad. For some reason, I thought someone had asked about Florence, Alabama yesterday, and that may have been you. My bad there. Let's go ahead and jump right on over now to the Florence, South Carolina region on my future radar timing. Obviously, your threats aren't going to come until we get into the day on our Sunday. It first looks like storms will begin moving in sometime as we go through the morning into the early afternoon. This broken line having the potential for at least isolated to scattered damaging winds, with that possibility for some tornadoes embedded. Do I think we're going to have long track tornadoes going on in widespread fashion by the time we get here into our Sunday? No, I do not, but there will be that potential for some tornadoes along this line, and you need to be prepared, knowing that lowest, most interior room of your home or building just in case. That could just be the first round. We could see more later into the day with isolated hazards. So the same kind of thing. We'll probably see the sun between a couple of the lines here if this guidance continues to look like it does. But multiple lines could be possible, one in the morning, one towards the afternoon in general in a place like eastern South Carolina. So you just need to be prepared through the day for these storms when they pop up. And again, know that lowest, most interior room of your home or structure in case of a significant severe storm or a tornado warned system. Weatherman of the North 154, I do appreciate your support. I get so many of your comments on my videos, and I love interacting with you in my comment sections. I love interacting with everybody. I've just had so many interactions with you over the last year in the comments, and I appreciate you as well with some support on all of that tornado safety going on, that discussion. A great discussion to have in the chat. And I hope for the best for you there, Lee, with that whole situation that you're worried about for your tornado safety today. But with that being said, I think I've answered all of the comments and questions that we're going to have on here live right now. If you have any further comments and questions, make sure you're dropping them down below after the stream. If you're watching this after it's done, of course, you can drop those comments and questions below if you have not already. And I'll catch you right here next time. My next video is probably going to be late on Sunday or somewhere in that general time frame as we look ahead to another storm on the way. This could be a winter storm for parts of the Midwest and bring rain to a lot of areas from the Mississippi Valley points eastbound. We'll talk about that in an upcoming update. For now, I'm going to go ahead and put us on the closing screen, and I'll see everybody right here next time at One Nation Weather. But one last thing, I'm going to put a poll down in the chat. If anybody would be interested, there's a feature I can turn on YouTube here. I've never really done it before. I think I can do a poll to ask people about this. But I've never done this on YouTube before, but there's a feature I can turn on where I can have members on the channel that pay like by the month for cool features or an occasional extra video here or there. If you would be interested in something like that, let me know down below. I'm going to try and create a poll. Would you be interested? I'm going to go ahead and type it. Would you be a member of the channel for, let's just say, I'd probably make it like 99 cents or $1.99. So yeah, we'll just have a yes or no start poll. So if you're on here with me live and you would be interested in something like that in the future, please vote down there in the live chat section. Would you be a member of the channel for like 99 cents or something like that, if you were interested in those extra perks and wanted to support the channel. Either way, I appreciate your support, and of course watching the videos means a lot, the fact that I have enough support on those videos and live streams. So just thank you to everybody for all the support you provide all the time. I'll leave this poll running for a minute while I put up the closing screen. But with that being said, I'll catch y'all all next time. Thanks for watching.